Welcome back to the Perks Recap Podcast. These lists are a lot of fun. I found this one to be absolutely impossible. Al, how you doing? How did you think of the going through this list and making this one up?
Doing very well, thank you. Good to talk to you. And yeah, this list was excruciatingly. It's awesome and excruciating at the same time. I really enjoy it, but I also add a couple gray hairs every time because you're trying to parse tiny little differences between. Oops, sorry, my phone just fell. You're trying to parse tiny little differences between some of the best players of all time. So we're not gonna be mad at anything here, but it's gonna be interesting to see how our lists compare when it's so hard to put together this top 10 to see how close we get.
This was impossible too. Another one where I was checking other lists and other things and making
Yeah,
sure I didn't forget anybody,
me too.
and people were all over the place.
All over the place, man. All over the place. I couldn't believe because there was a lot of all over the place in running back, which we did last time.
Yep,
And but we ended up having like 4 or 5 in a row that were exactly the same, and I couldn't believe it. I'm less I'm less convinced that'll happen with quarterback, but let's find out, I guess. Huh?
absolutely. All right.
You want to go right to the list, or do you want to hit some knickknacks first? Whatever you want to, or whatever order
Well,
you feel like
let's.
doing it in.
There was breaking news right now, so go ahead and break that.
Okay, we got big news. Travis Kelsey returning for another season. His quote was, "I can't go out like that."
All right. You know that's fine. I'm sure he's going to have another mediocre down season for him, and then the playoffs he'll probably turn it back on again. But I would assume no matter what the outcome is next year, he's done.
I can't imagine anything. I mean, it would be hard to imagine anything else. It really would.
Right.
I just you never know. Something weird could happen that fires him up or something. He seems like one of those guys that if he just gets something in his brain, he can be like, "Screw it, I'm doing it." But
Right.
and so I agree with you 100%. I think if I could bet on it, I would bet heavy that this is his last year. Um, and while what you said is absolutely 100% accurate, I would just like to hammer home the fact that the Travis Kelsey down year at 35 years old was 97 catches for 823 yards.
He had that many catches this year.
Yep. You still want him in PPR, people.
Wow. I did not think. I honestly did not think that. I know the yardage was way down, but
It
still.
stunned me too, Craig. I would have assumed he came in somewhere between like I knew he had a lot because there was a lot of games he had that were like 8 catches for 57 yards and things like that.
Yep.
That the type of game that only makes you happy if you're in a PPR league. And I had him in one, so I knew he was doing fairly pretty well. But yeah, it's gonna be fat. Like okay, so real quick and this is off the top of our heads here. I don't expect we won't hold either of us to this, but where do you see Travis Kelsey ranking tight end fantasy next year?
Well, 800 yards is not terrible.
No. Now his touchdowns were down to I think a career low 3, but that comes
Right.
and goes. So that you know what I mean. That kind of stuff comes and goes. So that wouldn't bother me personally.
No. Um, 5
I'm trying to think
maybe.
now. You got who are you putting ahead of him? The rookie from the Raiders,
Bowers.
the
Uh,
guy from Cardinals, McBride.
um, McBride.
Laporta
Um,
maybe,
Laporta.
and who else? I'm blanking.
Yeah.
You might be right
Great.
though. I think there might be one other guy. I'm going to find something real quick.
I mean,
There's
I guess he could go as high as 4, but I would take all those guys ahead of him.
yeah, I would too, just because you're looking at upside. You know what I mean? Oh, Mark Andrews maybe, although he's in the same kind of Kelsey downswing time. Although George Kittle. That's the glaring omission.
Oh yeah. Yep.
I'd take Kittle because he's heading towards the end too, but he doesn't look like he's in that decline mode quite as much as Kelsey right now to me.
Totally. Yep. Totally agree. Yep.
Okay, so good call on 5, man. I think that's right where I would put him too. Very nice. I like it.
Any other NFL news that we need to get to before we get to this list?
No, that was the big thing I wanted to talk about.
All right. Well, the impossible. So why don't we start it up? You want to give how about you give your number 10?
Okay. All right. Well, we're going to start this right off with one of my favorite players ever to see, one of the gritty guttiest ever to watch. I mean, and one of the grittiest players ever. It's funny because his stats, wow, very good, aren't going to blow your doors off with completion percentage or touchdown to interception ratio. Um, but he had one of the most gritty gutty plays in the history of the Super Bowl when he was an aging veteran, and that is the man with the teeth, John Elway.
Oh my goodness, yes.
And I can't wait to see where he is on your list because he could. When I first did the list, I think I had him at 8. Then I ended up at 10. So I don't know. Where do you have him?
Elway is one of, if not my favorite player in the favorite quarterback ever.
Right on. Right on.
I have him way up from where you have him.
Love it. And you can make a great case.
I have him at number 4.
Okay, right on, right on. And I won't. I wouldn't argue that. It's funny because right before I went on air, I was like, my number 10 might be at your number 4, and my number 7 might not be on your list, and that's exactly what happened. My 10 is at your number 4.
Well, that's the thing too is I've got so many X offs and cross outs and redos, and at one point, my first draft, I had him at number 2.
Yeah, listen, I can't. I wouldn't have argued too much if you did that at all. Honestly, like there's so much flexibility within this. Yeah, my list looks like a mathematical equation from the guy in A Beautiful Mind.
So does mine. I redid it. I
Oh, it's
redid it
wild,
so
man.
many times, it's ridiculous.
Yeah, I know, man. I did it for the first time a month ago because I did all 4 positions right away because I wasn't sure how we were going to do it. And I just got into it one night, and then I kept revisiting it, and I crossing it off and making arrows, and it's tough. Like you can like I have zero issue with him being at 4. I have zero issue with him being at 10. There are so many good players along the way. I mean, let's talk about some of just how awesome he was. Now, the difference in eras too is big with quarterbacks, and his 56.9 percentage. If he did that in today's NFL, he wouldn't be a quarterback for 2 years. But back then, it was a whole different game. It's not a horrible thing to have that completion percentage then at all, because what he
Not at
brought to
all.
the team, other than that, was so big.
Well, here's the thing is I also went back and I looked at yards per completion
Hmm.
for every one of these guys.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
and it doesn't seem like it's that big of a difference, but then I started thinking about it more and it is a big difference. So, like modern guys are all around 9, 10, or 11 yards per completion.
Hmm.
The the Elway era 80s 90s guys are all around 12. Elway was at
Oh, it just keeps.
12 point.
Oh, I see. Okay, keep going. That's cool.
Yeah, Elway was at like 12.5.
Okay.
And even though there's some modern guys that are around 11, 12.5 to 11, that's a big difference over the span of a career.
Oh,
I
no
think.
doubt. No, that's for
I think
real.
it's a huge difference actually, because the dinking and dunking just kind of started in Elway's era, but it was only a few guys doing it, and now everybody. I mean, the passing game a lot of times is an extension of the running game.
Right, right.
There's so much dinking and dunking. So, you know, the older guys are just absolutely ridiculous. I'll give a guy, and here's something that's not on my list. I give one guy who's not on my list. Um, let's see. It's Sid Luckman. You know the name, right?
Oh, he's on my. He's the guy I just crossed out and moved down from number 10 to first on my honorable mention right before we started.
Okay, well, perfect. I'm glad he's not on your list. Well, he's not on my list, but he has the highest in this on my entire list yards per completion at 16.2.
Yeah, man, there it is. Yep, I'm looking at it. That's incredible.
They were throwing the ball down the field, and they just don't do that anymore. In terms of, they were throwing the ball because regardless, it seemed to me like they were just running. most of the game. If they get a first down on 3 runs, they're just going to run the whole game. And passing was not anything really part of much of a game plan. It was kind of like a last resort. So if you needed a first down, or you needed 15 yards after a penalty or whatever, you were throwing the ball down the field.
Hmm. No doubt,
And
man. No doubt.
their attempts are way, way lower too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
But
Yeah. It's
anyway,
fascinating looking across the generations. No doubt about it.
yeah. So Elway was at 12.5, which is on the higher end for sure. And I think even though it's just a yard or two over the modern guys, I think that is a big deal. And yeah, he's my number 4. I mean, you got an MVP, you got 2 Super Bowls, the famous hit where he was running and did the helicopter in the air there.
That's the one I was talking about. Yep. And they was like, what was he, 37 or something at the time?
Yes,
36?
yes, it was right, right. It was either his last year or his second to last year.
Yep, it was something else, man. It was just amazing, and quarterbacks weren't good into their late 30s at that point either. It was a very rare thing. It
Oh
happened
yeah,
here and there, but not like today where everybody's just like, yeah, I'm going to play until I'm 40. You know what I mean?
yep, yep, yep. And they weren't protected then. And like if a quarterback got hit by like that now, it'd be 15 yards first down. It'd be roughing the passer.
Probably, I'd have to look at that hit. You're probably right. I'd have to see the hit again. That's one of it. Might, but there were probably 75 things in that game that would have either been a call on on the cornerbacks or on hitting the quarterback that wouldn't have been called then that would be called today. It's
Yep.
insane how much easier it is to play the position now. It's still the hardest position in sports, but it's so much, and you're protected so much. It's
Yeah.
it it's a whole different game.
But still, really respectable numbers: 51,000 yards, 300 touchdowns, another 3,700 running. You don't think of him
Yeah.
as a running quarterback? 3,700 yards is a lot.
That's a ton, man. That's a ton. And it's funny because they didn't I don't remember here like certainly he was a mobile quarterback. We're talking about the helicopter play and all that. And I remember him being mobile and using it a lot. But I don't remember anybody talking about him as a running quarterback, you know?
Well, I don't think there were ever like any real designed runs for him.
No, nobody was designing runs for quarterbacks back then. That I don't think that happened. Well, until unless you go back to like the T-bone formation and the the Red Grange days. You know what I mean? That's fat. Yeah, that's interesting that he had that many rushing yards, man, isn't it? That's really cool. Yeah, he
Oh
brought a
wow!
lot. He
And
brought
I
an
just,
awful lot.
when you get in these lists and you can kind of go in any direction, I kind of went with a lot of my favorite guys, and he's just one of my favorites. He really is.
Yeah, man. I get that 100%. 100%. He's one of mine too. There's just so many damn good players. I didn't know what to do with it. I love it. So, what's your number 10?
My number 10 is a more modern guy, and honestly, he came on my list at number 10 on the last revisit I did to the list. The last revision I made the list, one of the last thing I did was put him at 10 instead of putting him in the audible mentions.
Okay.
But I could not ignore the numbers, and it is Drew Brees.
Okay, man. I thought that might be where you were heading. Yep. And I have Breeze all the way up at number 5.
Yeah, and I have a 10, and just 20 minutes ago, he would have been off my list.
You're right.
But the man has 80,000 passing yards.
it's his numbers are insane. His numbers are I mean, they're ridiculous. They're ridiculous. And even compared to other people in the modern era, they're ridiculous.
Yeah, 571 touchdowns. The interceptions were a little high at 243. That's not too bad. With how long he played and how much everything else is,
Oh,
and
absolutely.
he had a 67.7% completion percentage. And as I look down my up and down my list,
It's the
that's
highest in
the
NFL
highest.
history.
That's the highest ever.
Highest ever.
Did he never win an MVP though?
I thought he
That's
won.
insane.
He didn't he really? I thought he won one for some reason, but I guess I'm wrong. That's funny.
I don't
It
think he
doesn't
did.
say it. Yeah, he won a Super Bowl MVP.
Yeah, but that's crazy. Yeah, he won one Super Bowl and he got the MVP there, but he never won a regular season MVP, which is criminal with some of the years he had.
That's the right word. I mean, man, like who won the year he threw for 5,476 yards and 46 touchdowns?
Probably Peyton Manning.
Yeah, they love Peyton. I mean, and for good reason, but who? Wow,
Yep.
that's crazy. I mean, his numbers are staggering. Like I knew how good he was. I watched his whole career and he was awesome. I loved him.
You know what's
But
crazy is I never thought he had that strong of an arm, to be honest.
his arm was strong enough, is what it was. And
He was
he
accurate as hell.
he knew how to play to his strengths. And he and Peyton Manning are very similar players. I'm sure we'll both be getting to him eventually. But he they were drafted they were close to each other coming out. Their games are very similar. And neither of them had rocket arms. Now Drew Brees threw a lot more spirals than Peyton Manning, but
Right. Yeah.
neither of them had that super cannon, that Jeff George hose. Oh,
Yeah,
and
because
by the way,
that doesn't mean everything. Because if that was the case, then Jeff George would be in on this list, and he's not even sniffing it.
yeah, Jameis Winston would be the best quarterback in the league right now.
Yeah.
That guy that got drafted by the Bills in the first round 20 years ago, J.P. Lossman, who threw it through the goalpost from his knees from the 50-yard line, would still be in the league.
Yeah. So
And
it's
by the
not
way,
all on site.
in 11, Aaron Rodgers won the MVP.
Okay. Okay.
So, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I'm sure he had a heck of a year.
Oh yeah. No doubt. No doubt.
Oh, I love it. Awesome. So yeah, Breeze, man. I mean, just he got the Super Bowl. It's hard to keep him off the list having got the Super Bowl.
Right.
And then you put those numbers with it, and it just makes an easy case for wherever you want to put him on the list.
Yeah, you can make the case.
You really can because he's got. I mean, he's number one in completion percentage, and what is he number two in yards and touchdowns? Is that right?
Number one
Where'd my
completion,
list
number
go?
two in yards. Um. Yeah, it
And
looks like
two in
number two.
touchdowns.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
So yeah, you can really make a great case for him wherever you want to put him. So I'm down with that. So yeah, he was he was your 9. He is my 5. So I had a 10, and you had him at 4, and you had a 9, and I had him at 5. I love this. All right.
So you're number 9.
Okay. Now I know for damn sure this guy's going to be on your list, and I'm guessing he's going to be higher. Um, and he had to be on mine because even though his peak was shorter than most of the guys on this list, his peak was as good or better than most of the guys on this list, and that is Steve Young.
He is not on my list.
Oh, I thought for sure he was going to make your list.
Nope, he's on my honorable mentions.
It's mildly surprising, although I get it because of the short thing, and I'm sure that's why. But I just know your love for him, so I thought for sure he would have made it.
Yeah, I hate him. That guy was the bane of my existence during the mid '90s.
Yeah, and I've also heard you say several times how he's the best quarterback at the peak you've ever seen, or one of them.
Steve Young?
Yeah, you went
That's
off on
not
it.
me, man.
It's recorded. You went off on a young tangent in one of our podcasts.
Steve Young?
Uh huh.
I don't think so, man. I hate that guy's guts. I never liked him.
Well, it must have been a respect thing, not a like thing then.
I don't. I don't ever remember saying anything like that about Steve Young or going on a tangent defending him in any way. If anything, I'm trying to tear him down because I don't like him.
Oh, that's hilarious. I love it. I
He's
love it.
he's one of the reasons. Like he, you can make the case obviously to put him on your list, and there's no argument for me for you having him on there. But I said I went with a lot of my favorite guys, and one of the reasons he's not on my list is because I hate him so much.
Oh, that's so funny, man. That's
So
so funny.
I don't like him. I don't have any love for him at all. And then, like I said, he was the Cowboys' enemy in the mid '90s.
That's so funny, man. That's all right. I don't know what I must have said something that I don't remember. But yeah, no, there's something out there of you defending him against something I said or something. But I'll have to find it. That's great. That's so funny. So yeah,
That
obviously
is
I was wrong
really
about
funny.
that.
It's funny that you remember and I don't. In my actual feeling form is pretty much the opposite of what I must have said.
That's hilarious because I thought you were the biggest Steve Young fan in the world because of that one conversation on the podcast.
No,
That's
I'm
so funny.
like I said, he's not even on my list. I did not.
That's
And to
awesome.
be honest, I barely I didn't even really consider him.
That's so awesome. Do you realize he has is now, damn it. See, I thought that's so funny because I thought you were going to come loaded with Steve Young facts. I was totally off here. That's so funny. Um, there's some, I'm going to have to find the stat, but he has
You sure it wasn't Joe Montana?
no, because I was talking about Joe Montana and you said something to the effect of you would take Steve Young over him. Like I got to find this comment. I'm going to have to listen to
You
80
gotta be.
episodes to find this
I
now.
gotta tell you, I would never in a million years take Steve Young over Joe Montana.
Well, I wouldn't either, but that's why I was so surprised during that conversation. That's why it stuck in my mind.
It's
I
got to
don't know.
be
I'll have to
somebody
find it, man.
else. It's got to
I
be
might,
somebody else. There's no
yeah.
way.
I might have I might have Mandela affected this one or something.
I mean, if you find it, I said it, or I'll take your word for it too that I said it because you're remembering it pretty vividly, it seems. But I have no recollection of it at all. And again, my true feelings of him are not even anywhere close to the things you said that I was saying.
I love it. That's so funny, man. Well, let's just assume that it wasn't what you said, and I'm misremembering. And if
Well,
I
one
ever
of us
find
is.
it, I'll
I
bring
could
it
be
back up.
misremembering.
That's so awesome, man. I love that. I love that. So, okay. Well, regardless, there's a stat out there that I didn't pull up because I thought you were gonna come loaded with it. But and I'm gonna hopefully I'll be close enough here. It is has set he had God damn it, I'm not gonna be able to say it right now. Go let's
Well,
go to the next thing.
well, he had two MVPs. And he had a 64.3 completion percentage in a time where if you were over 60, you were like one of the best, most accurate quarterbacks in the league if you were over 60.
Right. And Craig, you're breaking up a little, but it's sounding like a computer. Like I can understand you, kinda. Can you talk again?
Yep. How about now?
Crystal clear. Perfect. Thank you, man.
Okay.
Thank you.
I was saying he had a 64.3 completion percentage at a time when if you were, at like 57, 58, you were fine. If you were over 60, you were like one of the best in the league. And he had it was at 64.
Which you're right. At the time, he was one of the and the Niners in general. Coming into the bringing the West Coast thing in were Montana and him were innovators of that whole change in the quarterback position. You're exactly right, and he jumped it up to another level for sure, for sure.
Absolutely, and he was mobile. He scrambled. There's always that famous run he made
Yeah, which is such
where
a
he
funny run. It's
yeah,
such
where
a
he
funny
stumbled.
run. You know, he ran for 4,239 yards, and I don't know if it's still a record. It can't still be a record. Josh Allen had or Jalen Hurts had to have broken it over the last couple seasons, but at one point he had the record for rushing touchdowns by a quarterback with 43 as well.
Wow, wow.
Yeah. Um, there's
Was
the stat I'm looking for. I just can't find it. Dang it, my bad. But it was he has some kind. There's only one quarterback in the history of the league that has more than Steve Young's six quarterback leading. I can't remember the damn stat, Craig. I'm just going to drop it. But if I'm sorry, I should have had it. Damn it, it was the perfect stat to make the case for Steve Young too, and I screwed the pooch. I'm
no,
Mandela affecting, and I'm missing my stats.
no worries, no worries. Again, I could have said it, and I don't know what the context was, but normally I would never defend anything Steve Young has ever done.
Yeah, and it's very possible I'm misremembering, but I really had that in my head for some reason, and I might have just put it there. You know what I mean? Oh my god! Oh wait, maybe this is it. Here it is. Dang it, here it is. It wasn't 6 seasons, it was four. He's the only player in NFL history to lead the league in passer rating for four consecutive seasons.
Oh wow,
That's what I was looking for. And it's not quite like his prime was cut short because of playing in the USFL and Tampa Bay and sitting behind Joe Montana. But it wasn't like Gale Sayers or something where he only had like 4 productive seasons. He played for like 10 years that were great. You know what I mean? So long enough to get him on the list for me.
All right, all right. Well, that's your number nine.
That is my number 9.
All right, my number nine has changed 1,000 times, and he's only on this list because, in my eyes, he was very innovative, and he's the reason why the league is where it is today in terms of passing, and that's Dan Marino.
Love it. Yeah, he is my number 7.
Okay, yep. Like I said, I crossed him out. Let's see, 3 times. I had three adjustments with him.
I love it, man. I
Yep.
love it. Yeah, yeah. Go
Sixty-one
for it.
thousand yards, 59.4 completion percentage, but again at a time when that wasn't a big. That was actually a pretty good number. Over 400 touchdowns, uh, 250 interceptions, but you know, one MVP and one Super Bowl appearance, which was a loss, which is why we wasn't a little higher on the list.
Hmm.
Um, and you know, his numbers are good, solid compared to today's game. But like I said, he was so pass first and pass happy and never wanting to run, kind of where the game is now. That he kind of started to usher that in my eyes anyway.
I mean, it was certainly a big factor. It had to be, you know. And another big factor with him, and the reason I bumped him up maybe a notch above you was very slight, is um he had a season. He's the only quarterback I know that had a season in the 80s that would stand up to the seasons guys are having now. And that was his 84 MVP season. 5,084 yards when nobody else was throwing for 4,000 a year.
Yeah,
Hardly.
yep.
I mean,
That's
you
an
know,
insane number.
yeah. And then 2 years later, he did 4,700 and 44 touchdowns. So he was doing things like I always give bonus points, and you'll find that as we go through this list more and more to people that are game changers. And like you said, he ushered in a whole new era in the sport, and he did things before anybody else by a decade. You know what I mean? So big bonus points for that. If he had won a Super Bowl, he would have vaulted up this list even further. But because of that, I'll keep him at 7.
Okay, yep. Yeah, if he had gotten to a second Super Bowl, even if he lost it, I probably would have bring him up a little bit more. And if he actually did win one, he'd go up way. He'd be up probably in that 6, 7 area as well for me.
Yeah, man. Nah, for sure. And here's the other incredible thing about Dan Marino. Can you name a receiver he ever played with?
Uh, I
I
mean a
can name one or
couple.
two.
Yeah, super duper.
Okay,
Wasn't Clayton Mark
nice.
Clayton? Mark
And I
Clayton.
can name one more for sure.
Uh, I can't think of anybody else.
And I only know this guy because he played with the Eagles towards the end of his career. Irving Fryer.
Nice. You know what's
Yeah.
funny? You know what's funny? He he played from 1983 to 1999, a real till he was 38 years old. 17 years, and in
Hmm.
17 years, he ran for a total of 87 yards.
Oh, that's awesome.
Talk about a statue! Wow.
Now, do you think, Craig, that is just the cumulative amount of hundreds of quarterback sneaks over the years and he never actually ran? Because I don't remember seeing that guy run once.
He had a lot of years where he had negative numbers.
you know,
1984, he rushed for -7 yards. 1985, -24 yards.
what was his highest rushing yardage ever in one
He
season?
actually had 66 yards in 1992.
Wow. Wow.
Then -4, -6, 14, -3, -14, -3, -6 to end the year.
That's incredible, man. I mean, that's old school, baby. That is old school.
He the running game all around, himself included.
Yeah, that's perfect. That is perfect.
I heard him in
Oh,
an interview saying he wished they would just throw it out of the league. You weren't able to run. You had to pass every play.
yeah. Well, okay. Well, here's a better question than can you name a running? Now we managed to name three receivers that he played with over what did you just say, a 17-year career or whatever?
17.
17. Name a running back. That's harder.
Didn't he have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar once?
Maybe towards the end. I think you might be right.
Oh boy, but yeah, you don't know, you don't remember his running backs because they never used them.
Well, that's the thing. We don't know if they were any good or not
Right? They
because
could have been great. We don't know.
because none of them ever got the ball. I would love to know the real story there because you came from one of the most conservative, not conservative, but just a old school football coach with Shula. I would love to know the sideline conversations, the game plan. Was the game plan with Shula just let Marino do what he wants? Because Shula never struck me as some wilting lily that was going to let some young buck quarterback do whatever the hell he wanted. You know what I mean? So I don't know. And we weren't in the era of quarterbacks walking to the line and doing whatever the hell they want with the play either. You know.
No, no.
So what the hell was Shula doing?
He was on board with them.
Isn't that fascinating?
Also, Marino famously has the worst score ever in that. What is that test they do at the end of the year,
Oh
or at
yeah,
at
the
the
Wonderlick.
college? Yeah, he has like one of the worst Wonderlic scores ever.
Yes, that's funny, man, which is crazy. Like I remember a couple guys that crapped out of the league did real well or real poor on that test. I think Jamarcus Russell famously they leaked that one and it got out and it was real bad.
You never hear about it anymore because people have realized I don't think it really matters.
Yeah, nobody gives a crap. You know, once it started coming out too that these GMs were asking, like, remember with Des Bryant, they asked him if his mom was a whore.
Yeah, like what are you doing?
They should be kicked out of the league. Like that's crazy. You know what I mean? Like that's absolutely bonkers. So yeah, that kind of thing. The Wonderlic has seen it's seen its day and it is gone. Good for that.
Good. Very happy about that.
Yeah, right there with you. I love it. All right, so where are we now?
Number 8.
Oh, okay. So now we get to one of my this. This is a fun one. Very tricky to figure out what to do with some old school cats, and this is one of them. And this is one of my favorite players I never saw play. I read about this guy. I was obsessed with this guy when I was young. And the crazy thing is, I'm going to read you something before I even tell you who it is, although you'll figure it out probably, and maybe the listeners will too. And if they don't, I'll tell them right after I read this. So, this quarterback was part of the 1940 NFL title game in which his team lost 73 to nothing.
Wow.
Okay. Now, nobody's blaming this quarterback. It was just one of those things. It's one of those famous games in NFL history. It was the Bears beating the Redskins 73, the former Redskins 73 to nothing. And a reporter, one of the receivers for the Redskins dropped a touchdown, easy touchdown pass at some point during the game. And a reporter asked the quarterback if the outcome would have been different if the pass had been caught. And he said, yeah, it would have made it 73 to 7. I love that quote. And the guy is slinging Sammy Ball.
Nice. He's on my
Now I'm curious.
honorable mentions.
Okay, I was going to ask, and I was curious if he made any list or where he might have been in your top 10 if he made it. Honorable mention is totally legit for Sammy Ball. Um, the thing that's so amazing about Ball, and we'll get into his quarterback play in a minute here, but um, he he played three positions
Yeah,
his entire career. He played defensive back, quarterback, and he was one of the greatest punters to this day in the history of the NFL. His
yeah,
yards per he had the yards per kick average record that stood until a couple of years ago, and he was doing it
yeah.
in the 30s.
He led the league in punting one, two, three, four, 5 times.
That's nuts. And
like
there's
punting
1
yards
year where he
average.
averaged 50 yards a punt.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. Yeah. He had 2 years, 53 yards per punt in 1949 and 55 yards a punt in 1951.
That's insane. And nobody was kicking it was only in the last couple years that these guys in the NFL now started kicking like late high 40s to low 50s. You know what I mean?
Insane for
Yeah, it
that
really
time
is.
period.
It really is. And here's the kind of the major thing about this three position thing that I want to say. Check this out. In 1943, Sammy Ball had the NFL's highest passer rating. He led the league in interceptions and in punting average. Now, talk about a triple crown.
Yeah, that's a hell of a triple crown.
He was the best quarterback in the league, and he also picked off the most quarterbacks. That's crazy.
Unbelievable. Yeah, I mean his overall numbers, they're not going to. He had 21,000 yards total, but 187 touchdowns, and actually he had more interceptions than touchdowns.
Yeah,
Did
and
you know that?
that wasn't uncommon back then. You
Yeah,
know.
187 touchdowns and 203 interceptions.
Yep, that was just how it was back then. He did some things though that innovated the game. He did something nobody else was going to do for a long time, and that was in 1945 he completed 70.3% of his passes.
Yeah, craziness.
You know what the
Also,
league average was that year, Craig?
what?
45.6%.
Oh my God.
Now talk about guys who are better than everybody else at their time. There's the perfect example.
Absolutely. They didn't even have MVPs at that point.
Right? Or he would have won 7 of them probably, or I don't know how many he would have won. He would have won a boatload of them.
Absolutely.
Oh, here's
Absolutely.
another better than everybody else stat, Craig. In 1947, he threw for nearly 3,000 yards in a 12-game season. The last guy in the top 10 that year threw for 1,004 yards.
Oh my God.
That's how much further he was ahead of everybody else. He led the
That
NFL in
just
completion
illustrates.
percentage.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Please go.
No, I was just saying that just illustrates again how much the game has changed. I mean, you got they just
Exactly.
didn't football when it was first played and the rules were first made up. I don't the forward pass wasn't really a thought. It was
Yeah,
supposed to
it
be
start
like rugby almost.
right. Yeah. It apparently it was Ball that changed that because they started yeah, here it is. He started his career as a tailback.
Yep.
And it says this is from NFL.com's top 25 quarterbacks of all time. It says he revolutionized the passing game, catapulting off the strides made by quarterback of the Packers, Arnie Herber, who I don't know, to make throwing the football more than an idle threat. As a tailback his first few seasons, the tailback did most of the passing chores in the 1930s.
Wow.
Sammy Ball was hamstrung by a scheme that resembled nothing of today's spread attacks. But as more teams went to the T formation in the 40s and Ball got under center, the air game took off. So
Yeah.
he wasn't even under center until the 40s.
Yeah. He was innovative. He was absolutely, yeah, so important to the league.
Yeah, he's just one of my all-time favorites. He was one of those guys I kind of got a man crush as a kid, and I've always had a thing for Slinging Sammy Ball. So he was going to be on this list for sure.
I love slinging Sammy Ball. What a great
Best
name.
nickname, probably the best nickname too. I don't know. Maybe there's a better one I'm not thinking of, but that's a great nickname.
All right. Well,
And you're number 8.
all right. I've kind of made a little bit of a boo boo.
I love it already.
Well, we were talking off air and how I was thinking that I was going to put Mahomes on there, and at one point I think I had Mahomes like number 5.
Hmm.
But we were both talking, and you said you don't put any current guys on there, and I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with doing
And
it.
I
That's
took
just what I
Mahomes.
choose to do.
So because of that, I took Mahomes off my list. But I forgot that my number 8 guy is also still active, even though not real. It's up in the air. But my number 8 guy is Aaron Rodgers.
Well, now he's a lot closer to done, so I think he's that's quite all right. And listen, it's just a personal choice of mine anyway. It's not a hard fast rule, and I'm not mad at anybody for including
Well,
people that are still playing. And
yeah, no, the thing for me is not that, it was a rule decided. It's just that if I have Rodgers in and he's still active, then that means I should probably have Mahomes in and he would be even higher.
I
That's
get
all.
you 100.
It's like
percent
either have both or neither, and I have one.
No, I get you 100%. Although you could make a case, it makes more sense with Rodgers because he is like 13 years older than Mahomes.
Right, yeah. He's got a year, maybe two at the absolute most left.
Well, I can't wait to see. He's, by the way, have you heard, quick news side note, have you heard, since we talked about the Stafford trade stuff last week, he is now lobbying to go to the Rams.
He's also talked to the
Not
Giants, apparently.
Aaron Rodgers is.
Yeah, Aaron Rodgers
Say
has
it
also
again?
talked to the Giants.
That would be hilarious. That would be, I would
Uh,
love that.
I
Oh,
guess
I would love
maybe he
that.
doesn't
Please let
want
that
to.
be the one.
Maybe he doesn't want to move.
Please let that be the one.
Yes,
That would make, oh man, that would make my football year. That would be so funny. Oh, God, that'd be awesome. Oh, so yeah, so let's talk about Rodgers then, man.
absolutely. I mean, four MVPs.
Yeah, he's. I
And
mean, there's no there's no legitimate case against him being on this list, unless other than not being retired.
yeah, over 60,000 yards passing. He passed 500 touchdowns this year. And I tell you what, he is so good at preventing interceptions and preventing turnovers. I mean, you got guys ahead of him, Elway on my list, and some other really big names that we're going to get to with over 200 interceptions and around the same yardage, maybe a little more, a little less, whatever. A lot of guys around 200 interceptions. Like, let's see, Marino had 252. Aaron Rodgers has 116 interceptions.
He is, and I don't think it's very well. There's only one other guy in the conversation, but he is the best all time at that for me. Um, there's only two people that have more than 3,000 pass attempts that have less interceptions than him, and Aaron Rodgers has 1,500 more than both of those guys. 1,500 more pass attempts.
Yeah, yeah, he had some
That's insane.
absolutely insane years too. His MVP years are just stupid, especially with the interceptions. When you consider it, don't forget he had that year where he had 48 touchdowns and how many interceptions? Five interceptions and 48 touchdowns.
That's insane.
That's great. His last MVP year. My God, 48 and 5.
Yeah,
Another year with
it's
40 and
incomprehensible.
7. My God.
Yeah. No, he's the king. I mean, of taking care of the ball. He really is. Like his career high in interceptions, unless I'm missing something, is 13. And everybody on this list had at least 13 interceptions multiple times.
Oh yeah, and he had it once. Then he
Right? I
then
mean,
he had
yeah,
11
it's
another.
incredible.
Yep, he had 11 another year. In 12 his last year in Green Bay, and I guess 11 with the Jets here. But I mean, we're going over 20 years. That's what, 4 or 5 seasons. That means he had 15 seasons with single digit interceptions.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. He was so good for so long, you know. Um I
Yeah, uh,
he blows my mind.
yeah. Listen to this stretch for interceptions: 6, 8, 6, 5, 8, 7, 6, 2, 4, 5, 4, and then back to 12 later on. That was a
Amazing.
stretch of like some people's entire career would be in that span where he threw single digit interceptions every year. And every one of those years, he had over 25 touchdowns.
Yeah, that's 11 seasons in a row. That's crazy. I mean, that's Yeah, he's. I mean, I'm glad you brought him up anyway because it's worth talking about. This guy is. We're in a weird spot with Aaron because he's a bit of an odd bird, and he's showing up and talking a lot, which always, the clips start coming out that make people look bad sometimes when they flap their gums all day every week. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I get.
Like there's clips coming out from Micah Parsons every week because he's got a podcast. He's not saying anything wrong ever, really. You know what I mean? But something comes out all the time. Who
Yeah,
cares? Um, but we're in this weird slow fade right now. But do not let it obscure anybody listening how great this guy was for so long, man. I
yeah,
would love. I would love to. I'd love. There's no way to quantify this ever, but I would love to know how right you and I are about Mike McCarthy not being a very good coach and how much better he could have done with a above average coach during that stretch.
yeah. Because you got think of that. I mean, that run. That how did he only get one Super Bowl?
Yeah, and they had good defenses almost all. They always had a decent D too. It wasn't like they were, some weird like offense only team during those stretches.
I totally agree. I don't get it. How you've got an all-time great in his prime, putting up ridiculous numbers in stats and winning MVPs, and you can't. I don't get it.
Yeah, and it's not like they got to a bunch of them and lost to the Patriots, which would be understandable because they were the dynasty of the era. They didn't get to a bunch of them. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
I,
that's what I mean. Yeah, they
yeah,
didn't even get there.
yeah. So yeah, it's a fascinating thing to think about. No, there's no way to ever figure it out, but I always wonder.
Yep. And you're right about, he is a weird dude, and we'll see where he ends up. I guess he said he wants to play, but doesn't necessarily mean he will. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a lot of people kicking the door down for Aaron Rodgers.
I can't imagine. Oh, did you hear, by the way, another fun little tidbit as we're talking about quarterback news is apparently Tom Brady has been lobbying to get Stafford to go to the Raiders.
Well, apparently there's a possible tampering going on with
Oh,
that.
I didn't even think about that because he's not a free agent.
He's not a free agent, and Brady's an owner.
And
You
what
can't
is
do. You can't. They went on a where the hell they go? They went to some island or something together and spent like a weekend together or a week together. I think they went skiing or something. They like spent a lot of time together. I think it might have been either a weekend or an entire week, something like that, where they went on Brady's dime and he was trying to
Oh
get him to go to the
wow.
Raiders.
Okay.
All
Okay.
this shit, and now there could be an issue with that. Where now I think that they're actually backing off on it in terms of how it came together. And Brady says he just happened to be there at the same time as me, which
Oh
is
yeah,
bullshit.
right.
That's bull.
Yeah, right. Oh, that's so funny. I didn't hear any of that. That's awesome, man. Oh, wow. Well, shoot. Yeah, Brady's gonna have to learn how to be an owner, apparently. So far he's 0 for 2 in his post quarterback transition. Mediocre at best announcer, mediocre at best owner so far.
Doesn't know the rules.
That's great. Oh, I love it. Awesome. All right. Where to next, my man?
All right.
Is it
I believe you're number 7.
okay? And I had Marino there. So do you still have a 7?
I do.
Nice. Go to town.
Homer pick. Roger the Dodger is my number 7.
He is one of my top. He's right behind Sid Meluckman as my second alternate. Roger the Dodger, one of the best ever, man. He was a tough son of a bitch.
Roger Staubach, his numbers are not going to overwhelm you. He also never won MVP, but he won a couple Super Bowls, got to a couple more, and there was a time where he was one of the most feared quarterbacks in the league in terms of it was never over. Captain comeback, all that,
Captain Comeback, the original Captain Comeback. Yes.
and the original Hail Mary.
Oh, I didn't remember that.
Yeah, the original Hail Mary. When they asked him about the long touchdown bomb to I don't know who it was, maybe it was Pearson or Calvin Hill, And they asked him
Mm-hmm.
um, about it. He said, "Well, all I did was say a Hail Mary and threw it up, and
Oh, no
that
way.
became the Hail Mary." Yep,
That's awesome. I never knew where that came from. I don't think I ever heard that story. That's great.
came from Roger Staubach, and
That's super cool. Super
I
cool.
I had him in and out and in and
Oh,
out,
hey, Craig,
and then
you're starting to break up again. Real quick, I'm sorry. You're starting to break up again a little bit.
sorry. How about now? We good
There we
now?
go. Perfect.
Okay.
Yep.
Now I was saying I had him in and out and in and out so many different times, but I ended up staying on him because I never really even saw him play, but he's so revered in Cowboys history. So I just want to throw him on there. At the very least, I want to talk about him. Like I said, his numbers aren't overwhelming: 22,700 yards. But he would scramble. He would look like he was dead, and then like get up. He purposely did that too. I saw an interview where he said he after he got hit, he liked to like grimace and roll around on the ground and act like they really got the best of him, and then get up and complete the next pass.
Oh, that's great. That's great. He should have been a soccer player.
Yeah, the
That's so.
original flopper, I guess.
Yeah. That's. I love it. That's smart though, man. And the one thing I have to throw in about him, and that is this. It adds an exponential amount to everything you already said. Is this dude wasn't even in the NFL until he was 27 years old because of the Navy.
Yeah, he was in the Navy for a long time. His numbers would be a lot better, obviously, if he was there the whole time. If he
He
was there the
started
whole
his
time,
career at 27. Like, that's crazy. Who starts a
yeah,
career at 27 years old? And
he
he
only
didn't
played.
even become the full time starting quarterback until he was 31.
Yeah, he played 6 games at 27, 8 games at 28, 13 games at 29, but then back down to 4 games at age 30, and then at age 31 was the full time quarterback.
Incredible. Like if that guy had been in the league right out of college, like just a normal path, the numbers would match everything else we already know about him. You know what I mean? So I'm 100% with you. He was I kept him off the list because of the numbers, just because everything having been said, they are still the numbers. But man, I have zero issue with him being anywhere on this list. That dude was one of the toughest guys that ever played. He was great.
Absolutely, and he did have he led the league in touchdowns once in his 1979 year. He didn't lead the league, but he had to be up there. He had almost 3,600 yards.
Yeah, which at that point was a massive amount. That's a good call. Yeah, his last 2 years, he was over 3,000 yards for the first time, and almost 3,600 that last year. That's a great call.
Yeah, and he had another 2,300 yards rushing. So yeah, very cool.
Yeah, great call, man. I'm glad he made your list because he is well. I'm crossing him off my alternates now, or my honorable mentions, because he was one I wanted to talk about for sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so to my number six.
Yeah.
Okay, well here we go, buddy. Get ready. Get your what is it called? What's the phone booth in Doctor Who called? Get that thing ready because we're going in the Wayback Machine. The TARDIS, I think it is, or something.
Yeah. I think I know where you're
Oh.
going.
Well, there's two guys that in the Wayback Machine that I'm going to be talking about eventually, and the first one, and this is one of the best names ever. I just remember reading about him as a kid. One of the early dynasties in the NFL and one of the biggest winners in NFL history, and that's Otto Graham.
He is my number 5.
Love it, love it. He was my number 4, 5, and 6 at various times throughout this whole thing. I mean, talk about an innovator, Craig. I mean, this guy. This again. This is a big theme for me. Guys that innovated were gonna get on this list for me as much as possible.
Yep.
And he's just, an absolute freaking stud, man. I mean, we can talk about the wins in a little bit, and we will. But let me get my fun autogram facts here. Here
He
we
is an
go.
all pro every year.
Yeah, and here it's cool that you started this whole exercise by bringing up Elway and talking about yards per attempt, right? Which
Yep.
I thought was
Autograms was at 16.
yeah. This is what they said on NFL.com about him. This they have this the stat you need to know thing, which I always like, and this guy agrees with you, and I agree with you too. By the way, if I didn't make that clear, this guy says I've always thought that yards per attempt was the most unheralded measure of a player or of a quarterback in pro football. Um, and where's the number? Here it is: 174 times. Wait, I have to go back and read this. All of which to say, guys like I suck today, Craig. My stats are failing me. I'm sorry. I'm usually better at this.
No worries.
Oh, here we go. He got a first down almost every time he released the ball, and this goes to what you were saying earlier about how they approached passing, right? Um,
Yep.
this guy did the research to find out how many times Otto Graham would have had to spike the ball into the dirt for the next closest player to catch him on the all-time list. 174 times
My
for
God.
his yards per attempt to knock him that far down. If he just threw the ball into the dirt 174 times, it would tie him at number two. I struggled getting that one out, but that fat stat just blows my freaking mind.
That's astounding. Yep.
Yeah,
That's like the
unfreaking believable.
That's like the Mariano Rivera stat about if he went to the World Series again, he would need to like give pitch no innings and give up. I think it's something like 24 runs or 19 runs to get his ERA over 1
It's crazy.
in the World
It's
Series. But anyway, go ahead.
crazy. I mean, that's nuts, man. Yeah, I love those kind of stats, man. It really is something else.
And maybe it was 1.5. I don't know. It was some stupid number. It was ridiculous.
I love that. I love that. Yeah, so Otto Graham, man. I mean, just an absolute beast. 3-time NFL champ,
Yep.
7-time All
All
Pro.
time name. Just an all time name. You just hear that name.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, and by the way, he has 3 nicknames they list: Automatic Otto, Otto the Great, and Mister Quarterback. Now, what
Well,
does that
yeah.
tell you about his place in the game back then? If they were calling him Mister Quarterback,
Yeah. Just such a different game.
love it. Awesome. So yeah, so
Of the guys in the 80s and before, who do you think would translate the best to today's game? I just thought of this. And to be honest, I think it would be Marino.
Marino would be awesome for sure. Um, But the only thing is, and listen, I'm 100% with you. Marino would be incredible. The thing is, imagine like a guy like Elway today because he has the mobility. They like,
Yeah.
if he had Jalen, imagine Elway with Jalen Hurts' game plan. So man, yeah,
Unstoppable.
because
Unstoppable.
unstoppable. Um, and so yeah, I mean, those two guys jump right off the page at me. Yeah, those two for sure. I'd have to think about it to find somebody else better, but I'll tell you what would be interesting too. And the one thing one thing we haven't mentioned, and this is a good time to do it actually, is this position more than any other in certainly in football history suffers from racism. There are so many great people that could have been great quarterbacks that never got a shot that we'll never know. Like one of the ones I love to bring up, Craig, is Charlie Ward. Do you remember him? Oh, did I lose you, Craig? Uh-oh. Oh.
No, 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 no. I'm here. I'm here.
Oh, okay, we're good. We're good. Okay. My phone, we're good. Okay, cool, cool, cool. Can I hear you now?
I heard you go, oh.
Yeah, I looked at my phone and I was like, I thought the thing dropped. I thought the call dropped because it just went into a little tab instead of being the whole open thing. I was like, no. Did
That
you
was
hear
great.
any of my tangent about
I heard the
race
whole
and
thing.
quarterbacks?
I hit the stupid mute button again by mistake.
Okay, right on, right
So I was
on.
talking and you weren't hearing me.
Okay, well, feel free to jump in on whatever you were going to say about that.
I don't remember now. What were you talking about?
Okay, so yeah, I'll just quickly recap the
Charlie Ward. I said he played
Charlie Ward.
basketball. I said he played
Charlie
basketball
Ward.
too. Yeah.
Yes. Now Charlie Ward had every measure, like he would be one of the top quarterbacks to go in any draft that ever happened. You know what I mean? If it in the last 10, 15 years. But he knew and was told by NFL people that he wasn't going to get a chance to play quarterback in the NFL. So Charlie Ward, a guy who would be a great quarterback today, in my opinion, went and played backup point guard for the Knicks for 10 years instead of going to the NFL.
Yep. Yep. Well,
And
the
there's
only
cap.
thing you know about the racism as late as 1988 is Doug Williams getting asked how long he's been a black quarterback.
Yeah, I mean that's the thought. It's horrible. It makes me laugh because it's so insane. It's insane.
Yep. How does it feel to be the first black quarterback to play in the Super Bowl? And then the next question was, and how long have you been a black quarterback?
I mean, come on. Like, what kind of idiotic simpletons were running around Earth then? Yeah,
It's the worst.
yeah.
Yeah.
I'm so with you, man. So yeah, so I just wanted to throw that out there while it popped into my head while we were talking about guys from the '80s and stuff. Because yeah, Elway and Marino would be my number one and two, and it's just fun. It's interest, not fun. It's interesting to think about like some of the guys that would have had a shot that were playing cornerback and wide receiver. You know what I mean?
Yep. Yep. All right.
Cool, man. Well, that's a good one. All right, where are we now? Oh, that was my
My
number six.
all right. My number 6 is Johnny Unitas.
Beautiful. Oh, hey, where
3.
where did you have Otto Graham, by the way? If you told me, I missed it.
Oh, I had him at number 5.
Oh, that's great. Okay, cool. And I have Unitas at four.
All right. Awesome. Um,
Beautiful.
40,000 yards, 3 MVPs. Just he's Johnny Unitas. You know who he is. You know about the old man coming back and getting that one last one, and then trying to do it again when they play the Jets. Just all around, he's a titan of the game.
That's a perfect way of putting it. It really is a titan of the game. Yep, no doubt. On top of that, another another example of a guy who changed the game. He
Yep.
legitimately changed the game. Where's my Johnny Unitas stuff? This guy, man. um. So this is
You,
what NFL.com says about. Oh, did I lose you again, Craig?
no, I'm here. You got me.
I'm hearing you breaking up a little bit. Do I have you?
You should have me.
I got you now. There you are.
Okay. Sorry.
No, no, no. All good. All good. It was just for a second.
Okay. Sorry
Every
about
now and
that.
then, it's not like I'm not losing you. It's just once in a blue moon, you sound like you remember the movie The Lawnmower Man.
Yeah.
every now, every now and then, it sounds like that.
Sorry about that.
No, all good, man. All good. So here's what Johnny Unitas brought to the game, Craig. That was so innovative. You know, he's the guy that developed the 2 minute offense.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't.
So
I did not know that.
I didn't either until we did this. This is one of the greatest things. This is one of the great joys about doing this with you and also with Jordan on his podcast, The Baseline, where we do the baseball stuff, is finding out even more about guys I grew up obsessed with. You know what I mean? So all the things I missed as a kid, I'm going back and finding out now. It talks about it on NFL.com. He morphed the disorganized approach losing teams used to make a comeback late in a game into a routine 2 minute drill we know today. Before this monumental shift in strategy, offenses ran their normal attacks, clocks be damned, and more often than not ran out of time.
Wow. He is
Unbelievable.
credited with the 2 minute drill or the 2 minute
That's
offense.
so in the last hour or however long we've been talking now, we have discovered the 2 minute offense, who came up with the phrase the Hail Mary. We have a quarterback that started his career as a tailback and then moved under center when the NFL started that for the first time in the 40s with Sammy Baugh. I mean, this is awesome.
Wow.
That's
Wow.
so
Wow.
cool. So that was your six, Craig? Is that correct? Or was that five?
My number 6.
Six. Okay, cool, cool. All right. So my number 5, I already had. That was Drew Brees. So if you want to go to your 5, if you have them.
Okay. Oh, my number 5 was Otto Graham.
Okay. Well, my number 4 was Johnny Unitas. Do you have a
And
4 left? Oh wait,
my
I
number
think
4 was John Elway.
that's right. 10 and 4. That's right. Okay. Well, here we go. It looks like feel pretty confident saying we have the same top 3.
Yes.
Now the question is, do we have the same order? And I will
I
start
think
mine by
I think we're going to, but go ahead.
okay. I'm really curious, and I think we will too. But I'll start it by saying my number 3, Peyton Manning.
My number 3 is Peyton Manning.
Hey, there we go. Nice, nice. And talk
Yeah.
about, and I want to say this, and then you go wherever you want to go with Mr. Manning. The last of the guys. Well, no, that's not true. Another big guy on the list to change the game. There was nobody going Omaha and calling multiple audibles at the line before Peyton Manning, and
And
it changed
he was
everything.
faking audibles because he said sometimes Omaha would mean something, and sometimes Omaha wouldn't mean anything at all, and he would just say it to throw off the defense.
Yeah, and they were running games there. I mean, it was great. It was, and you never saw, it was wild. Remember when, I mean, he was the only guy in the league that would stand up there pointing and yelling things until there was under 5 seconds left in the play clock. And I remember a lot of the old school announcers couldn't wrap their head around, like, what is he doing? Like, they have to snap the ball, and
Yep.
every time it was going to snap around 3 or 4 seconds, and they would have it was so innovative and so incredible. And a big credit, I believe, am I right that it was Jim Mora that was his coach when he started doing that?
I believe so. The playoffs.
I,
Playoffs?
yeah, playoffs. Yeah. I think we're right about that because he had Marshall Falk for his first year in the league, um,
Yep.
and where was I going with that? Oh yeah, so a big chunk of the credit for the evolution of the league and Peyton Manning doing it has to be given, whether it's Jim Mora or whoever did it. I think it was Mora, because there are very few coaches out there, Craig, especially old school coaches from that era and back that would like to give any power to anybody.
Yeah.
So for him to actually agree to do that is not, you can't shortchange how astonishing that was and how innovative it was and open minded it was for a coach that was in his 60s at the time.
um. Yeah. I mean, you can kind of start and end the argument about Peyton Manning with 5 MVPs. That's it.
Yeah, yes, yeah,
Just 5 MVPs. No one's ever done that before. Even
yep,
the great number one, or chances are number one, that everybody has as number one. He only had 3. Peyton Manning had
right,
5,
absolutely,
and at a time when quarterbacks were going crazy, and he was leading the charge.
exactly, man,
His
perfectly put.
2013 in Denver might be the greatest season ever by a quarterback, regardless of some of the other years, some of the other people. 5,400 yards and 55 touchdowns and 10
Oh my God,
picks.
yeah, it's
5,455 and then 10 picks
ridiculous.
at a
I-
68% completion percentage.
That's absolutely insane, man. Absolutely insane. And it was him and Drew Brees that were really leading the charge in the completion percentage world too.
Yep.
I mean, his completion percentage numbers are absolutely freaking bonkers. I, I mean, and that year with Denver, I mean, absolutely, it's wild. The fact that he was able to come back and have that second act in Denver after that neck injury, which was no small thing, you know,
No, he missed an entire year.
is absolutely.
And he
Yeah, he
wasn't
missed a whole year.
he didn't have a cannon arm either. Not he didn't have an arm like
That's what makes that year
Elway.
that much.
What's that?
I'm sorry. I was just saying that's what makes that year so much even more impressive.
Oh yeah, 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 absolutely. Yeah, like he didn't have a arm like Elway or you know Rogers, Marino. He didn't have one of those cannons. He had a good
Right.
arm, but kind of like Breeze, a good arm, really accurate, but not overpowering.
No, 100%.
All right, well, yeah, he was my number three, and 71,000 yards, 539 touchdowns. I mean, the accolades just go on and on. The numbers go on and on. He is absolutely number three, and three, two, and one. I had to give a little bit of thought to, but I knew the three players. I just had to give thought to the numbers.
Yeah, I was right
Yep.
there with you on that. Right there with you on that.
Yep.
Well, would you like to reveal the number two then, since I did the number three?
Sure. Number two is Joe Montana.
Boom. There it is.
Yep.
There it is.
I fought
And
this
let me
one,
tell you,
Ryan.
please.
I fought. I'll get into it more with the number one, but anyway, yeah,
No,
Montana.
it's funny because I think you're kind of going where I was going to go. That's awesome. We'll get into it more as we get there. That's great.
Yeah. I mean Montana. I mean he's the quintessential winner. He more than his numbers, which are not overpowering at all or staggering at all. Couple MVPs, but it's just every time he got there, he won. He never ever lost a Super Bowl. He has five of them. I mean, my God. And then, he had a second act in Kansas City. He did not get back, but he had some good years in Kansas City. It was not like he was a disaster.
No, he
So,
played. He did very well there and won a couple playoff games.
yeah. So, he was the number one before a couple other people came along, and or at least one or more person came along. And there's still an argument to be made that he still should be number one.
Yeah, I'm with you. And I start. He was there. He was number one for 90% of this time in
All
this
right,
exercise, and then I
yeah.
finally slid him down to two at the end.
Let me ask you a
Um,
question. Let me ask you one
yeah,
question.
please,
We're not. There's no reason to hide. Number one's Brady, obviously. Um,
no doubt.
but if you had one quarterback with your life on the line, would you rather have Tom Brady or Joe Montana?
Joe Montana.
Joe Montana, and it's not close.
Yeah, it's. I would take Montana in a heartbeat.
Big
Joe Cool,
games,
man.
big games, man. Joe didn't lose.
Joe Cool. He was the deal, man. And he was a tiny guy relative to that position.
Oh,
And
oh yeah.
he took a beating that Tom Brady never had to take. You know what I mean? Like, and he did it in a tougher era. Brady's incredible. This is not to diminish Brady. I mean, there's other reasons to diminish Brady, which I'm going to get into, but when we get to the Brady only segment. But he's I forget where it's going with that. I distract my every time I think of Brady cheating, I distract myself. Oh shit.
Well, to be fair, Montana did have Jerry Rice, and there's a claim to be made that Jerry Rice might be the greatest football player ever of any position. You can make that argument.
No doubt. Oh, look, hey, that's absolutely fair. Although he did play like about, I think about 5 years without him. I think Rice came in '84. Is that right?
Yeah, yeah, yep,
So he already showed he was great before Jerry Rice. So,
yeah,
but he did have Rice for a lot of those MVPs
yeah. A lot of those Super Bowls.
or those Super Bowls. I mean,
Yep, yeah. So, you know, I looked for reasons to not put Brady on there. I really did not want to put him number one because, I mean, excuse the language, he is the quintessential douchebag. He is a douche in
I
every
love it.
sense of the word. Everything you hate about that kind of person, he exemplifies it. Oh, I cannot stand Tom Brady.
Here, here. I love it.
And you're going to get into some of the reasons why we don't like him in terms of some of the shady dealings. Go ahead.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, they have been caught cheating twice. You got Spygate and you got Deflategate. Now, if anybody believes out there that it was that poor equipment manager that took the fall. I would love to know how much Brady had to write a check for to make that happen, by the way.
Yep.
If anybody believes that that guy did that on his own, I got, Bridge to sell you and land down in Florida. I mean, that's insane. Brady's flat out cheated in the or the AFC Championship that year against the Colts, and the now it wasn't his responsibility, Spygate, but his team also got caught cheating over the course of seasons with cameras stealing signals from other teams and recording other teams' practice fields.
Just
So that
low
whole
low
legacy is
rent.
tainted, Brady included.
Just low rent. Low rent stuff.
For real, for real. I mean, the thing that sucks is, he was awesome anyway. You know, you didn't have to cheat. Just like this is the same discussion we have with the Barry Bonds of the world and stuff like that in the baseball thing. You know, it's like it makes it really tough. Like I really wanted to not make him number one because of it. The problem is you take out the two Super Bowls that we know were affected by cheating, he still won five.
Yeah, and
So
he's
the
still
douchebag, and I agree with that word and the whole premise, is still awesome, and I have to acknowledge that.
and the numbers are staggering.
They really are.
I mean, 89,000 yards, 649 touchdowns, 64% completions, 3 MVPs. All the Super Bowls. You know, and I can't stand him.
Right? Here, here. I mean, I really second everything you just said. Yeah, man. I mean, that's Brady. Like I said earlier, we can at least we can take solace in the fact that he's a sucky announcer, and yeah, hopefully he'll be as good an owner as Michael Jordan.
He's off to the same start.
Yeah, he's already breaking rules, and hopefully he cost his team a draft pick already.
Well,
That'd be
by the
great.
way, there's nothing been officially charged. I'm talking about the New York Sports Talk is talking about they should bring up charges on him in terms of tampering because they want Stafford in New York, obviously.
Right
Um,
on, right on. Well,
but
I mean, just they're
it's
making
an
a compelling case.
Yeah, it is a compelling case.
They
I don't
really
know it.
are,
I
man.
don't know it in and out, but it's something about them meeting together and spending a lot of time together, either over a week or a weekend at some resort or something. And initially it was supposed to, they kind of planned it and they went together, and then once it got out, then they're all sudden saying, "Oh no, we just met." He just happened to be there at the same time because I think they're realizing that there might be something wrong with the way they did things there. But again, nothing official's been said or put into the office as a complaint or anything. But I did want to just put it out there.
No, I'm glad you did. That's fascinating, man. And wherever it ends up landing, I can only hope that he ends up costing his new team, a draft pick in his first 6 months of ownership.
How great would it be if they took away the number 3 or the
Oh,
number
that would
2
be.
pick?
Oh, it would be. I would love it. I would love it. Hopefully maybe they'll just take the exact same picks they took away from the Patriots for Spygate, which I think was a third and a fifth,
Yeah,
if I remember right. I could
anything.
be off on that, but I think it was a third and a fifth.
Yeah, and then for Deflategate, he was suspended 4 games.
I don't remember, but that sounds right.
I think he was suspended 4 games, and he's just so shady. Like everything about him. They tried to get his phone during that time, and he destroyed it. And then he
Yeah,
tries to say, "Oh, I destroy. I go through my personal phone. I change it every couple months anyway." Both BS, man.
yeah, right.
Ah,
He's so full of it, dude. So full of it. And you were right. It was a 4 game suspension.
yeah. It's just the worst.
Yep. Yeah, I hate having to acknowledge that we both
Right.
had to put this guy at the
Having
top
said
of the
all
list.
that, if there's Brady fans on here who are now mad at me or whatever for saying, I still have the way I feel about him, but he is still number one on my list. If this stuff didn't happen, he would still be number one on my list. And I do acknowledge Tom Brady as the greatest quarterback of all time.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. Well said. It pains me to do it, but I
Yep.
do too. I absolutely, he is number one. I had to put him there. It's hard. As much as I tried to come up with an argument, it's really hard to.
Well,
So,
you know what really hurts that argument? It hurts my argument at the time was the fact that he went to Tampa and then did it without Belichick and did it again.
exactly. That's where it really became. Yep. That's where it
Because
became 100% of of fait accompli. Yep.
yeah, before it was like, oh, it was Belichick, it was the system, he's a system quarterback, which might have been the case early in his career, to be honest. But you know, uh, the cheating and all that other stuff too helped him. This and that, and the fact that he got hurt that one year, and Matt Castle of all people won 11 games with them. And it's like,
Right.
oh,
Right.
see, anybody can go in there and win 11 games or whatever. But then he goes, oh, okay. Then he goes to Tampa Bay, who's never won one. With Bruce Arians, a different head coach, and has an absolutely fantastic year and wins the friggin' Super Bowl by beating Patrick
Absolutely.
Mahomes.
That's where he solidified everything. It's hard. It's hard to, because I knew a lot of people. I thought he was going to do well, but I was certainly rooting against it. But I didn't think he was going to do that well. And I knew a lot of people that didn't think he was going to do very well at all. And he proved them all wrong. And he went out and won the damn Super Bowl. And now we have to sit here and talk about it. And good. And I will do the same thing and acknowledge to any and all Tom Brady fans out there that yes, clear number one, had to do it. There's no other guy. It has to be him.
Yep. Um, what about some of your honorable mentions?
Oh, good. We can talk about players I like again. Let's go.
Yeah,
Give me what you want to do one first, Craig. I dropped my list, and I'm going to take me a sec to find my page.
sure. Well, I have a few. We did talk about a few, but the
Mm-hmm.
first one I'm going to mention is Terry Bradshaw.
Oh, love it. Absolutely.
Won an MVP and then 4 Super Bowls, of course, and part of that dynasty. The quarterback of possibly the greatest dynasty in the history of the league.
Yeah, right there. I mean, in the discussion for sure, and one of the best clutch players. If you look at the difference between his postseason and regular season numbers, his regular season numbers are good. His postseason numbers are insane.
It took him a long time to get going, too, though.
Oh, it did. It was very I always refer to Jim Plunkett as the guy who took the most time to get going, but it was very Plunkett-esque, but it had a
I mean,
longer
they were
prime.
calling for him to get benched because he was like in year 4 or year 5 before he actually started playing well.
Yeah, can you imagine anybody getting that much time anymore?
And not even, people looking 2 years. That's it.
Yep,
Even Daniel
yep,
Jones he got 5, but still.
yeah, man. Nah, that's a great one, Bradshaw, and I mean, some of his passes are some of the most iconic images ever. I mean, the pass to Lynn Swan in the Super Bowl,
Yep. And then
Stallworth down the sideline. I mean,
the deflection that went to Franco Harris.
the immaculate reception. Yep, yep. Man, yeah, just some of the most iconic stuff ever. So I'm with you, man. And we've all had to suffer through his broadcasting for the last 30 years.
He's got some nonsensical rants.
Oh, he has. I don't know how. I don't know anybody else who's ever stayed on air on anything longer at while constantly being unintelligible and not doing your job right. It cracks me up, and I don't really have a problem with it. There are some announcers out there that drive me crazy. I can't stand. He's not
And
one
that's
of
the
them,
thing
really.
is, that, you
It's
know
just,
why? It's because it's
it's Terry
jovial.
Bradshaw.
It's Joe. It's harmless, and in some ways, I don't know why it's endearing to me. I like that he's kind of goofy.
Yeah, I'm with you. It's funny. Did you ever see the movie Cannonball Run? An old movie from the '80s, early '80s, with
Um,
Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Burt Reynolds, and they're driving a van across the country in a
I
race.
I know of it. I'm not sure if I saw it. If I did, I probably saw it, way back.
Well, very brief side tangent. Recommendation to anybody out there who never saw the movie Cannonball Run: Burt Reynolds, Dom DeLuise, Farrah Fawcett in her prime, well worth seeing. Um, check this out, Craig. This movie's astonishing. All that I just mentioned, they're the big three that are in the van together. Also in this movie, Jackie Chan's U.S. movie debut.
Wow.
He's in a Japanese high tech car. Um, Dean Martin and Sammy Davis Jr.,
Oh my goodness.
Terry Bradshaw and Joe Klecko
Joe Klecko?
of the New York Sack Exchange.
Yeah, why was he with Terry Bradshaw?
They were teamed up as like Southern hick, like big dude, like Southern hicky guys that were driving a monster truck across the country in this race.
Wow. That's
It is one
cool.
of the best movies ever. It's awesome. Roger Moore, Jamie Farr from MASH. I mean, all kinds. It's crazy, dude. But Terry Bradshaw was doing that same shtick in that movie that he's still doing on TV today, and it still makes me laugh. So I love it. Well, that's an awesome one. Terry's a great one, man. I'll give you. Well, here. This was one of the tougher guys for me to leave off the list, and the reason I left him off, and you'll know who I'm talking about the second I say this, I'm sure, is because of his interception total, and that is the man who smacked more asses in the history of the NFL, Brett Favre.
Absolutely. The interceptions are the problem. Leads the
He
league
has
all
more.
time.
He has more interceptions than some of these guys have touchdown passes that are in the hundreds and hundreds of touchdown passes.
He has the interception lead by a lot.
By like 70-ish.
Yes. He has 336. That's literally the only reason I don't have him on the list. I have him right here in the honorable mentions. I thought about putting him on here. 500 touchdowns, 70,000 yards. I mean, 62% completion, 3 MVPs, a Super Bowl. I
Yep.
mean, what else do you want? Then you see 336 interception. It's like, I don't know. I ended up not putting him on the list.
And that's where I went to. And you could make a really good case for him being a top 10 guy, even with those picks. But I still like the and the not this doesn't discount the rest of his career. His career was awesome. But the lasting impression I have from Favre is when he was playing for the Vikings in that playoff game against the Eagles, where it was I think it was his last year, maybe his second to last year. I think it was his last. And the Vikings were trying to come back on a last minute drive, and Brett just was like, he just said F it and just winged it straight up in the air about 20 yards down the field, and it got picked off as easy as any interception I've ever seen. And he would just do stuff like that every now and then.
Yeah,
That was the most dramatic one I ever saw, but still,
the
he would do stuff like
gunslinger.
that. Love it, man. But he had to be mentioned for sure.
All right. Who else do I have? All right. I got one. I'm sure he's going to be on yours. His numbers, even though he played back in the day, are actually still pretty good, pretty pretty decent for sure. And that's Franz Harkington.
Oh, absolutely. And talk
4,700 yards, 340 touchdowns. Again, though, with the interceptions, 266
yeah,
interceptions. Uh,
yes.
but I mean, he had a lot of rushing yards. The guy, he's really good. He almost made my list as well.
Me too. He was another favorite growing up, and all like the all time scrambling magician. I mean, there are guys that were better runners at quarterback, and Fran was a very good runner, but there were guys that are better runners for sure. But nobody has I mean, lengthy, just play after play after play on NFL films of this guy just scrambling around for 10, 15 seconds. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yep. Making defenses look foolish.
Yes, yes. And he was the quarterback for one of the forgotten teams in NFL history, the Purple People Eater Vikings, that much like the Bills of the '80s and late '80s, early '90s, didn't win the Super Bowl and got a little bit left behind. You know what I mean? I think they win one with Tarkington or none.
No, they've never won. Nope,
Yeah, that's right. So
they've never
none.
won one ever.
They made it. Didn't they make it and lose? What am I thinking of? Yeah,
I think
they
they made
lost
it.
to.
I think they made it 4 times or something,
Is that what it is?
or
Yeah,
maybe
yeah.
three
Okay.
times, but they lost all of them, something like that. I don't know
That's
exactly, but they've never won a Super Bowl, and I know they got there at least once or twice, or at least a few times with Tarkin and never won one.
incredible, man. I mean, that's just amazing. It really is. That guy was something. And talk about guys that could translate to the modern era. Boom,
Yep,
Fran Tarkington.
yep, yep.
All right. Okay, I've got one for you. I'm curious if this guy made your list. This is I was talking about the racism at quarterback, and there's might be no better example in the
I
history
know
of
who
the
you're going.
NFL.
Yep,
Warren Moon.
he's on my list.
Boom.
I did not include his USFL numbers, and I probably should have. But even without them, he's got basically 50,000 yards passing, 291 touchdowns. Again, high on the interceptions. 291 touchdowns to 233 interceptions. That's not a very good rate. But I remember I distinctly remember him, obviously, and he had some big numbers, big seasons back in the day. And yeah, I distinctly remember how well he, how good he was.
Dude, and this guy had to go. This is how crazy football was back then. He didn't start playing in the NFL until he was, I believe, was it 28 years old. Okay. Now, to get to the NFL, he had to go to it wasn't the USFL, it was the CFL because
Oh,
nobody
okay.
in the United States was letting a black dude play quarterback. So they had to go to Canada. And this is what he did to finally get an audition in the NFL. He won 2 MVPs and 5 championships in 6 seasons. That's what he had to do to get in the NFL in the early 80s.
Jeez, my
So
goodness,
yeah, Warren Moon.
he was so good though.
He was, man. He and talk about it ahead of their time. That Oiler team that had the what were they calling it then? The was it the run and gun? I
Running, yeah, it might have been the running gun.
think it was the run and gun, right? That was ahead of its time. It was very similar to the way people are playing offense now.
Yep,
You know,
yep, yeah, yeah.
fascinating, man. Yeah, he was one guy I wanted to get into for sure. So you got somebody next?
Sure. Another one kind of from the same. He definitely went to the USFL, and that's Jim Kelly.
Oh yeah, I love it,
I
love
mean,
it.
4 Super Bowls. I know he lost them all, but he still got there 4 times, and 237 touchdowns, 175 picks, 35,000 yards, Hall of Famer, the whole thing, and had a big USFL career as well before that folded, and yeah, he so because of that he lost some time in the NFL. He probably would have at least another 10 to 15,000, 10, 12, 15,000 more yards passing if he just went straight to the NFL. But regardless,
Absolutely.
deserves to be mentioned, no doubt about it. And he's had a lot of health problems, a lot of issues. And I hope he's in good health now. Haven't heard anything in a while, but nothing but respect for Jim Kelly.
Same, man. Same. I mean, and with his kid Hunter, I mean, just what a man, like a man's man that is also has showed his emotions, and I respect the hell out of that. And he's going through a lot, like you said. I hope he's in good health. And yeah, what a great call. That whole Bills team. It's a shame they didn't win in the big one ever, but they were a great team, and you can't underrate those players, man. There were some great players on those teams.
I still say their best shot was against the Giants. That
Yeah,
was that was the one that they should have won.
yeah, I agree. I completely agree. No doubt. Was that
That's
the one with
Norway.
Hostetler?
No, that's wide right.
But who was playing court? Was that Sims still?
Oh, that might have. Yeah, that you know what? That might have been the Hostetler one.
I was thinking it was Hostetler because Sims I know was 86. And I thought it was Hostetler for the next one, but I could be
Yeah.
wrong. But either way, but yeah, no, I'm with you 100%. Wide right. I mean that led to the entire plot of Ace Ventura, Pet Detective.
I'm looking for Ray Finkel. Ray Finkel. I'm looking for Ray Finkel and a clean pair of shorts.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes. That's awesome. Oh, I love it, man. Well, great call on that one. I have three more, and I'll go quickly through this guy. He's just awesome. It has to be mentioned. And some franchises just have certain positions. You got the Steelers with linebacker. You got, there's certain things out there. That's the big one that pops into my head. But certain teams are always great at certain positions, and the Packers have an inordinate amount of great quarterbacks throughout time. And the first of the greats was Bart Starr.
Oh yeah, he's on my list too.
Nice. Two-time Super Bowl champ. He did it all, and he was
Yes,
one
he
of
did.
the luminaries of the game when I was growing up. Bart Starr's name was always mentioned in hallowed terms, and you know, just one of those guys. And his
Yep.
numbers aren't going to pop up. The most touchdowns he ever threw for in a season, Craig, was 16, which he did
Yeah.
twice.
But I mean, it's hard. Football is one of the most difficult ones to relate numbers. The eras are so different. If you try to convince people back in that time when Bart Starr was playing that you had to throw the ball 40 times to win, they would throw you out of the league.
Seriously, Vince Lombardi would have chewed
Yeah,
off the last bit of his cigar and spit it in your face.
yeah, ab- absolutely. It's apples and hammers basically.
Nice,
You're
nice.
not comparing the right things. It doesn't, you do the best you can with it, but that's a perfect prime example of a guy who was huge, important to the league, and a great quarterback for his era, and the era matters.
Exactly. And the numbers don't tell any kind of close to the story. Yeah, you said
No,
it real well, real well. So yeah, Bart Starr had to be mentioned, and am I right? That's three quarterbacks from the Packers that have
we've talked
either been
about it.
honorable mention or on the list between him and Favre and Rodgers.
Yeah, they have had an incredible string of good luck at quarterback.
And let's not forget the Magic Man, Don Majkowski.
Well, yeah, that didn't go well. But you had Starr. He had a long time before Favre came back, but then you Favre right to friggin' Rodgers, and now Love could be on that. Maybe not on that level, but maybe he is on that level. I don't know.
It's
You
hard to
can't
tell
so
so far.
early.
It's possible. You're
He,
right. It's possible.
and he's doing pretty. He's doing well.
He is. I mean, there's not you're not going to find a whole lot of better first two seasons starting quarterback in the league. So, yeah, I'm with you, man. Yeah, they had a lull in the '70s and '80s, but they had what like about 30 straight years of pretty good quarterback play now.
Yes, that's crazy, and you're absolutely right.
Isn't that nuts?
Yeah, they must be thinking in Green Bay. Why is it fine? Why is it so hard for these teams to get quarterbacks? We
You're
get them
right,
against nothing. It's
exactly.
no problem.
It's so funny because it's like almost like it seems so like it can't be this simple or people would do it, but it'd be like, man, I need to poach somebody from the Steelers to draft my linebackers. I need to poach somebody from the Packers to draft my quarterbacks. I need to poach somebody from the Eagles maybe or the Cowboys to draft my offensive lineman or or whatever.
Yeah.
It's fascinating. It obviously doesn't work that way, but it seems like you could just do that.
All
All
right.
right, you have another one?
I have one more. Yeah. Well, I'm 1.5. Real quick. We
Okay.
mentioned him already. The Sid Luckman, just
Yeah,
because
he was one of my guys too.
he had 16 yards per completion, which is the most I see on this list, and that's just bonkers, especially
Yeah.
compared to today.
Yeah.
All right. No other numbers of his are going to jump off the page, but definitely a name to know, Sid Luckman. So my official guy for this one, and it is my last guy. I put Big Ben Roethlisberger on here.
Right on. And he's a guy I actually didn't, but I thought about him a million times, and I definitely probably should have. Like he deserves it for sure.
Yeah,
For sure.
418 touchdowns, 211 picks, 64 percent completion, a Rookie of the Year, obviously two Super Bowls. Was it
Yeah.
two and
I think I'm going to
three
double check
Super
that.
Bowl, 3 Super Bowls and 2 wins? Is that it?
I'm almost positive you're right. I'm going to double check
Well,
while we're
they
talking.
definitely went against the Cardinals, and they went against the Packers as well.
Two-time Super Bowl champ.
Did they go 3 times? Oh, it doesn't matter. Um, yeah. So anyway, 64,000 yards. So yeah, I just wanted to mention Big Ben, give him his respect, and I want to just basically talk about him a little bit, and we can move on. Who's your last guy?
Cool. Well, real quick, I want to say one thing about Big Ben. We've talked about going who could go from an older era to the new modern era. Big Ben, if I had to pick somebody to put in 1948 and play a game from that's played in the last 20 years, that's my guy.
Yeah, I could definitely see that. Yep. No doubt.
tough SOB. And at his size, by the way, he would have been on the offensive and defensive line in that era.
Yeah, he would never play quarterback in that era.
No chance. He would have been
No.
bigger than every other offensive and defensive lineman in football.
Yeah, he would have been the biggest person in football probably.
Yeah, I don't know that there. I mean, yeah, I bet he would. I bet he would. That's so awesome, man. All right, well, my last one, and there's been a couple other people from this team too, or no, one other person. Uh, and that's a guy who I saw win a lot of games against my team on your team, and that's Troy Aikman.
I thought about him. His numbers are not anything to write home about, but you know, he was definitely a winner, and he wasn't asked to do a lot because
He's
of that.
Bart Starr 30,
Yeah,
40, 30, 40 years later to me.
because of that running game, he didn't have to. But he had a cannon of an arm, and the thing is, it would have been fun to see. I mean, not for me because I wanted just to win, obviously, but
Sure,
it would have
sure.
been interesting to see if he was the focal point of an offense at any point, or if the passing game was, and he got to throw the ball 40 times a game. I don't think he probably ever did that. Um,
Yeah.
what kind of numbers he would have put up, and I bet you it would have been pretty good. Great completion percentage, really, really accurate, and like we said, just not asked to do a whole lot because everything about that team was the running game.
I completely agree, and we'll never know if he could have done the things that Dan Marino did because he was never asked to, but he did everything he was asked to, and he was one tough sob, man. I mean, that guy. I think I'm fairly well certain I saw that guy take at least 10 concussions while he was playing. I mean, that he just would get crushed, get back up, and do it again. You know.
Yeah, yeah, he was tough. Um, you know, yeah, I just wait. In terms of talent, in terms of pure talent, he's as talented as any quarterback that's ever been in the league.
Yeah, he was a. Excuse me, I just watered down the wrong path. I agree.
Yeah. Yep. So that's a great name. I'm glad you brought him up. I thought about it, and I probably should have put him on there, especially considering it's my guy from my era. But you do. We go by numbers a lot, and the numbers are just not there. But I'm really glad you mentioned him.
And I respect you trying to be even handed and not going
Yeah,
super
because I could
homer.
have
You know what I
def-
mean?
I definitely could have. But
Totally. That's awesome. I love it. I love it. Well, that was freaking fun, my man. Is that it for our honorable mentions? I think, right?
yep, that's gonna do it.
Beautiful. Well, that was freaking fun.
That was great. It always is. The list is done. How about next time we get together? It'll still be before, if we do it next week, it'll still be before free agency, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Maybe we can next week talk about uh, what you mentioned. I think you mentioned last week or the week before, and I think it was on air. Something about us talking about the free agents of our teams.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely.
Let's
Yep.
do
You
that.
got it.
And, if it's a half hour podcast, it's a half hour podcast, whatever. We'll find things to talk about, but either way, we'll definitely discuss some free agents next week. Our teams, and excuse me, and if not, we can also get into just free agency in general as well.
Yeah, and maybe a little draft. We can hit a little tiny bit of draft too because the combine will be over. The combine's
Oh,
happening right now.
okay, yeah, we can definitely get into that too. Perfect.
And there's not going to be a ton, you know what I mean? Like it's like I'm not breaking down seventh round, left guards or anything.
This guy's going to make a really good backup safety.
Yes, although I think I have pinpointed the next great long snapper, Craig.
Oh,
I'm kidding.
that's fantastic.
I love it, man. Awesome. That sounds great. I love it. I'm in.
All right, awesome. So we will be back next week. The football content definitely dies down a little bit as we get, especially once the draft is over and free agency over. We're really probably going to be diving more into baseball and some other things. But for right now, we still have enough content to keep going with some football. I'm all about it. Don't forget, we are going to be on the Baseline podcast. Um, Probably Friday or Saturday is when it will be posted. And we're going to be talking about the top 20 outfielders of all time with Jordan on the baseline. And I got to say, of all the lists I've done, and including this one, which was really hard, That one is absolutely ridiculous and totally impossible.
Completely agree. I have
The worst one.
my
The worst one.
I agree 100% with you. I've completed it. I've settled on my top 20, which we'll see if it manages to last until we record it tomorrow afternoon. But if my list doesn't change, and I just want to verify this real quick because I've kept adding and crossing and doing other things. But if it does not change again before tomorrow, I have my top 20 and I have 14 alternates or honorable mentions. I couldn't get any less than 34 people, Craig.
Oh my god. It's so hard.
It
All right.
is.
Um, I'm also going to send you a picture offline. We can talk about maybe next week or whatever of my list that I did for today, just so you can see how many times I have it crossed off in different numbers and everything else. Because it's actually kind of funny. I bet you get a kick out of it, out of all the changes I made.
Please do. Please do. I love that.
All right, but that's gonna do it. Thanks for sticking with us. You know, we're at an hour 45, so definitely a long one. Appreciate it. And don't forget to join us on the baseline for the top 20 outfielders of all time. And join us next week, and we'll talk all about the combine, free agency. We'll get into it. And until then, Al, I thank you. Until next time, see you later.
That was awesome.